Okay, welcome to the Node TSC meeting for February the 7th, 2018. Going to follow our standard agenda. So starting with announcements, does anybody have announcements for the overall group? Okay, if not, we'll move to the issues which are tagged from across the repos. The first one is 18270, don't abort when a package JSON is a directory. This one, I believe Rich had the action to make a proposal, which he has done. He's talked to Bradley, he's talked to Ben, and in the discussion, he's made this proposal, which I'm going to paste into the discussion. And, you know, basically, it sounds like he's got consensus from Bradley and Ben, so we don't necessarily have to vote on it. I don't think we quite have quorum here anyway. So, you know, what I would say is basically go in and, you know, if you agree, you know, give a thumbs up and we'll see. My suggestion is, you know, it sounds like he's mediated a resolution, which we'll just be able to move forward with unless anybody has any alternate suggestions. Otherwise, you know, we'll bring it back to the meeting next week if that's not the case. Okay. So moving on to the next issue, which is 18158, ESM provide named exports and for all built-in libraries. Just going to paste that one, open that one up. Right, now this one, I believe we invited Ruben. This was the one for you that you were going to comment on, right?
18248.
Sorry, do I have the wrong? There's two.
And the other one is 18158.
Right, so we're on 18158.
Okay.
If you want to sort of frame the discussion there, that would be a good start.
Well, out of my perspective, we pretty much already outlined the main arguments about that JavaScript itself has some edge cases where the behavior just is in a way that if you if we add just any value to the process environment, it will be stringified, and the stringified value is a valid entry no matter what the input itself is. And it would be weird to have like a special handling for undefined to remove entries, especially also because other entries like Fish Rock outline that German that adding an object would be also stringified to object and things like that. An array would also look very weird in this case. So then we have the edge cases that you cannot really use encodings besides UTF-8 or even ASCII. I'm not sure anymore. And I personally don't feel like it's right to have this specific behavior to remove an entry completely if you set it to undefined. It's just surprising behavior for me.
One question I had was, is it came out of another PR where something similar was done? Is it that you think it was the wrong thing to do there as well, or is it just that this is different?
I already thought that it was wrong in the other one as well. And in this case, if we have a look at it, it's 15089. That was the original one. There was a long discussion about it. And then Anna had a Twitter poll about it. And then people were like, probably, I say probably, more on the side of removing in case undefined would be set, because it was also about like, should it also be set to undefined if you put in null or other things. And still the poll did not cover like all options that were possible at that point of time. And some people stood up, and no one blocked it strongly, so it went through at some point, even though there were also concerns from multiple persons.
Okay, so like I was just curious, like one of the reasons it kind of made sense to me just reading it the first time was just from the consistency perspective. But if it's not necessarily expected in the other place, it doesn't hold a lot of water. I guess Michael is Michael Zasso as the originator. Do you have any other comments to add into the discussion, or?
No, not really. I don't feel strongly about it. I just opened the pull request because of the other one.
Right.
I don't care if this lands or not, personally.
Okay. Do we have anybody who feels strongly it needs to land?
I feel it will be the behavior that we would have liked to have from the start. So, I'm just catching up. Which PR is it?
This is 18158. Delete process.m values set to undefined.
I would like to think that those are at least good attempts. But if it breaks down,
Environment variable set, and then they don't really put in any value because they don't care, and they only check that this variable is actually set as an environment variable. That could definitely break.
That's because normally it would be converted to a string, whatever you put in, as opposed to a regular object where if you set undefined, you might not be able to tell the difference of it not existing. Yeah. Does anybody else have any thoughts or things they want to add to the discussion? I think in absence of that, it sounds like there's some people who are kind of saying yes, we should do it. Some who are saying we shouldn't. So I'm thinking the next step is to schedule a vote in the next meeting. Does that make sense to people? Okay, so I'm going to say, just going to tag it with discussed in meeting today, still differing views, schedule vote for next meeting.
Just a question, Michael. Do we have a quorum? I'm not surprised.
So I'd have to go back since we've added people. Let's see how many people we now have.
We're currently at 20 people.
Okay, and we have here 1, 2, 3. We have 10 TSC members here, so we have half.
Okay. Sorry.
So I don't think. Sorry, say that again, Miles?
It was a bad joke. I said we have quorum-ish.
Quorum-ish, yeah. I mean, I think we're close enough to discuss it. I think even, if we're... So we could decide to schedule the vote starting now. And then just review, try and close on that vote in the next meeting. Does that make sense?
If we don't have anyone objecting explicitly right now that's on the TSC, I would prefer us to just do a call for the TSC to make objections and just land it if there are none, rather than forcing a vote.
Okay, so basically you'd say, discussed in TSC meeting today, still differing views. If there are TSC members that object, please do so. Otherwise, it will proceed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
just have a question about it. Is there, like, what are the real reasons to do it right now? Is there really a benefit?
So I guess Matteo or James, I think you both suggested you wanted to see it happen. Can you speak to that?
I think it's the benefit is I think this is the behavior that it should. In terms of, is there a benefit if it breaks somebody? I would have to say probably not. If it doesn't break people, then getting it back to getting it to what would be the what I would consider the correct behavior would be ideal. It's not a strong argument by any.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the risk is we don't really. How confident aren't we that it won't break people, right?
That's a slightly orthogonal, right? So the question is, what is the benefit irrespective of the risk? There is benefit. There's also risk.
Right.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess it's not all that important. But in this case, maybe Timothy himself should speak up about it.
Yeah, and actually, I think we may need. So Miles, back to Timothy, who is okay, no, he's not on the TSC, but I think I'm just trying to think whether this is actually a situation where we should have a vote versus TSC just not objecting, right? Because there are objections in the issue. Um, versus so it's I'd have to check our governance, but I'm thinking this is a case where we should actually have a vote. Is there a reason?
So as far as I know from our governance, unless someone explicitly from the TSC is objecting, then I don't see a reason to force a vote. Although with that being said, as you know, Timothy was nominated, that does make kind of like an edge case here.
Yeah.
But what may make sense is, like, this doesn't strike me as something that needs to land in the next week. We could find out if Timothy's going to be at the next meeting, and it seems reasonable to try to have a conversation with him involved before forcing a vote.
Okay, so still differing views. Let's see if we can get Timothy at the next meeting before voting, before
Also,
starting.
with Rich now, Anna just mentioned we do have quorum. So if we have quorum without any dissenters right now, that is worth considering, and that would remain quorum even with Timothy added to the TSC as a 21 member TSC.
Right, so that would require though that everybody votes. So if everybody here said yes, we should land it, then that would be enough. If we don't have that consensus, then we would need the full vote.
Yeah, and I would abstain because I don't know enough. So with that, I think it makes sense to punt until Timothy's able to join the conversation next week.
Yeah, I agree because I'm on the. I don't have super strong feelings either. So I like the idea. Let's see if we can wait till next week, see if Timothy can comment, and then if based on that we can figure out if we need a vote or not. Okay, any more discussion on that front? Okay, so the next issue was 18158. Sorry, no. Sorry, I just clicked on the wrong link.
I'm the one that edited the agenda because it was a
Yeah, let's push this out to working, like as with anything, push it out to the appropriate working group when possible. And if it's released, then let's just give this to the release team and say, you tell us, should we land this or should we not? Because I'm with Ruben. I don't like. I guess I like just a smidge prefer that we land it, but I don't have a strong opinion. And then mostly I just want this to get unblocked. And the release team has a huge stake in like stuff like this, like the change log looking good, but also, you know, stuff not breaking. So let them decide.
Sounds completely reasonable to me. So I will add to the release agenda. Do we believe there's an urgency? Because I don't know that the release team has any meetings scheduled.
There's no urgency, although it doesn't need to be decided at a meeting. Hopefully the release team has a GitHub repo or something where an asynchronous conversation can happen about it. But yeah,
here.
I don't
so
think
let's see. Discussed in the TSC meeting this week, decision was to ask. So do we need, I mean, Miles, I'm just asked, since you're part of the release team too, do you think we need to open a new issue there to discuss it, or can we just tag everybody in this issue saying, you know,
that's
the release team?
Going to suggest is to open an issue in the release team for us to have a conversation about it.
Okay. This week, open issue in release.
One more comment about it, because Jeremiah said that he's pretty sure that he changed change logs before.
Yeah, and Rod said the same thing, that we've done this before, but like, you know, but let's let the release team like look at what this actual change is and decide on its value, and you know.
I feel like we should set a precedent and stick to it now, and maybe we can document what that is.
Sounds okay. Sounds good. I'm just gonna create an empty issue that I can paste the details in, so I don't forget that. Okay, sorry, just one more second here. Okay, that's enough that at least there's something there so we won't forget. Moving on to the next issue then, strategic initiatives, the tracking issue. So I filled in an API. We've submitted a PR in the Node pre-JIP repo for interaction with an API. The team from Microsoft is looking to get another NAPI module into DevEdge, into their DevEdge production service as another production level proof point. And, you know, again, we're just fairly soon looking to put forward the recommendation to move it out of experimental. Unless people have questions, I'll move on to the other strategic initiatives.
Just as a question, is the documentation from the search thing still on the map?
Sorry, did I miss one? That was
18248. It's a closed issue, but it was a pull request in which there was a lot of discussion, and I asked the question. That was actually the reason why I'm here.
Right, yes, okay. So I think I looked at the previous minutes and did that, but since it was closed, it wasn't automatically put onto the agenda here. So let's, right, sorry, I put it in there, but not there. Okay, let's flip back to there. So, sorry, just adding this to the minutes. So do you want to lead us in the discussion on that one?
So originally, Yosuke opened a PR to always fail in the comparison of weak maps and sets. For me, it's like an object of any kind in JavaScript, and we have to stick to what we have as the language itself. So right now, it means we cannot look at the entries of a weak map or set, but we can compare the object otherwise. So in case someone would, for example, manipulate it by adding more properties on one or weak set or map, but not on the other one. And they might have different entries, but we don't know. In this case, it would fail. That's fine, because it is different. We can distinguish it because of the extra properties. But if it's a plain weak map both times, and we cannot distinguish it besides saying, okay, it's identical by reference, that's possible. But if it's not identical by reference, we cannot compare it any further. Right now, it's done as any other object, and it would just pass. And that's actually the right behavior out of my perspective, because that's how JavaScript works. And there were a couple of persons for each directions, and there were 3 different opinions. One was to only document the current behavior. That was this PR, and that has landed because that's fine one way or the other. But now it's still open if it should always fail to compare. And that would also mean not only in the util function is deep strict equal, but also in a case of assert and deep strict equal, and not deep strict equal. Yeah.
So basically, you said the documentation, documentation language documented how it works today.
Yes.
But the question is still around as to whether or not the behavior that it does have is correct.
Yes.
I'm thinking we should have an issue, if we need to discuss that, then an issue should be open where we can have and capture that discussion. That makes sense?
I agree in a way, but the point is, in that pull request, there's actually already a lot of discussion if you have a look at it. And there's also a mini poll, and it had also very the result was not very straightforward.
Right. So I guess the question is right now it sounds like there's no consensus on what we should do, right?
Not at all.
So it's what's a next logical step towards, moving in a direction where we have consensus, or, what is it going to take, you think, to move it forward?
That's the point too. I think it would actually need a vote here about keeping it the way it is, or to throw. That was an alternative mentioned from James. It is in a way a solution, because you say, okay, we cannot compare this, so instead we just throw an error. But on the other hand, it's still a regular JavaScript object, and we should just stick to what the language itself provides for us. This is my opinion. So I would just keep it the way it is, and people should read the documentation about how things work. That is the main problem here, and that as far as I can see it, I'm sorry, that people do not know that it is not possible to look into a weak map or set to compare the entries.
Just going to mention here what Michael wrote in the chat, that there is an actual issue open for discussing this. It's number 18227.
Okay.
All right, I forgot about that. Sorry. And I actually moved the discussion in the PR. I'm sorry about that. Won't do it again.
Okay, so I'm going to take a note. The discussion is taking place in...
Well, I moved it, and I remember why I moved it into the PR, because it was some discussion was happening in the issue, and some discussion were happening in the pull request. And therefore, I just said, okay, move it to a single point instead of having 2 different discussions.
Right. I think with the pull request being closed now, though, it's probably better to, we need something open that we can track that means that there still needs to be something that happens.
Yeah, I agree. And probably it would be good to have like a summary of all the discussion happening in the pull request in the issue.
Agreed. Are you volunteering to do that?
I guess so.
Okay. PR in that issue. And I guess because I think, normally until it gets to the point where somebody's proposing we do something, like there's discussion going on there. Is it at a point where there's an impasse? Or something where, it's to the, we need to have the TSC vote one way or the other versus have, ask the TSC maybe to comment in there on opinions or.
I think it would already be good if you would just use the mini poll in there to see in what direction it would go. If there are enough people from the TSC already voting up or voting down one of the 3 points, then it would probably already show what we would do or not. And
okay.
Just what I really care about is that please read the discussion in this case. There was like a lot of text, so yeah.
Okay. So if you're volunteering to put a summary of that discussion, to add summary and do add summary and do mini poll to gauge, general TSC direction on this. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would also like to know what the TSC might think about. Is there anyone else has a strong opinion about one way or the other here?
Yes, I do. I agree with what Benjamin wrote in the issue, and so I think what we should do for deep equal for distinct weak maps or weak sets, I think we should just return false, because from Node's perspective, it is always valid to act as if they were different, because it would be dependent on garbage collection anyway. So what the actual contents are, that would be dependent on garbage collection. So it's always valid for Node to act as if those sets or maps contain different entries, so we can always return false. And we're definitely not telling the user anything wrong by doing this, which for assert.deepstreak_equal, that's going to turn into a throw. Just yeah, that sounds fine to me. And to your point that you brought up in the issue, that that would be special handling of those of weak maps or weak sets. I mean, yes, but we also have special handling in place for maps and sets. I think it would be consistent to have that for weak maps and weak sets too. In that case.
In what way are they special handled? Because I'm not aware of that.
I mean, we're looking at the actual contents of maps and sets, right?
Yes.
And those are not visible through JS properties or anything.
Ah, that's what you mean. Okay, I see. Well, out of my perspective, util is deepstreak_equal is trying to compare objects in the best way possible. So in this case, just everything that we have should be compared, no matter what way we reach that point. For weak maps and weak sets, there is just no possibility of comparing them.
I don't want to impugn the importance of this conversation, but I'm not sure we're actually going to come to a resolution. And we do have a couple other issues to talk about, and we are running a little bit low on time. I'm wondering if we might want to move on to the GYP and the LTS issues at this time.
Yeah, I think we should push it.
And keeping you.
So I think if we push the discussion back to GitHub, and Ruben has volunteered to take a few actions there, is that good for everybody?
So which issue on GitHub should be used going forward?
Is it 18227?
Yeah, I would suggest that. And like, I'm going to add TSC review on it. That's fine with everybody.
Yep.
Yes, and @ mention TSC if it hasn't happened, or request a review or whatever.
It has not been done, so yeah.
Okay, so let's back to strategic initiatives. Let's just quickly see if there's any updates since we don't have a huge amount of time.
Hey, Michael, can we actually skip strategic initiatives, and people can do it asynchronously, and we can discuss the LTS and GYP issues and come back to strategic initiatives if we have time. But this seems like something that can just be done, after the meeting, just people, providing the updates into the minutes directly or into the issue tracker.
Yeah, as long as it happens. But yeah, I'm okay with, doing the other issues first and coming back to that if we have time. So the next one we have then is number 38, upcoming changes to JIP. I'd actually added that to the agenda. I think it's really just awareness that, we now own those JIP files. The ones in the V8 repo, I think, are going to be deleted within a week or something like that. And so I don't know that there's a decision for us to be made there anymore. It's just a matter of, I just wanted people to be aware.
I can just give a quick update on that. So on the V8 side, we have Node.js on our CQ, our continuous integration, and we're building with GN there so that we can use the same GN files that we have in V8 anyways. But we can definitely continue to build Node with the JIP files at the moment. It's just not happening on the V8 infrastructure anymore.
Right, and I think they're going to be moved into a node-owned directory.
I believe that already happened.
Okay.
Yep.
So the directory will continue to be inside V8. It will just become node-owned. There's a few other files in the V8 copy that we have that are owned by Node.
Right. Any other comments on that one? Okay, I think the next one then was Miles. You wanted to discuss some issues with LTS releases.
Yeah, so a couple different things have been going on that I'm chasing down and trying to get happening. I was quite ill, and then I was on the road for a while, and Gibson had vacation, and I kind of feel like we've fallen behind on getting all the Semver miners into 8.x that we wanted to get into it. Specifically, there's three commits that still need to land that we wanted to try to land. One is getting support for OpenSSL 1.1.0. That one has introduced some weird edge cases we weren't expecting. We've been chasing them down over weeks. I just kicked off a CI that I'm hoping works. This combined with, our infra has been particularly flaky lately, unfortunately. That's made getting some of these things to work a little bit extra difficult. We've also got the one that's the most important is the updating V8 to 6.2 PR. It's been verified as ABI compatible with our tooling, but every time we try to integrate it, we keep finding small little edge cases. We've just run CI on it again, but I'm a bit concerned that, we originally discussed doing a 3-week RC so that we could test all these different minor features, and now we're a week before the release, and we don't even have an RC with this out yet. Now, I guess this is probably more of, like a question or something for the release team at large, but it does affect the TSC. Like, do you think that we should punt on these 2 Semver miners to the next Semver miner, which would be a quarter from now? Should we schedule a Semver miner sooner? Should we back out the Semver miners that we have, do a Semver patch, and release a Semver miner next month? Or should we move forward with the Semver miners with less of an RC? These are all like different options that we could do. I'm really not sure what the best path forward is right now.
So I would vote for the most cautious path and just, really, but at the same time, I would also say I'm perfectly comfortable punting this to the release team.
Actually, the most cautious path is not necessarily the most cautious path for the longer term, because if we punt the Semver miners to another quarter, then that means the 6.2 upgrade gets punted by a quarter. And then the deeper into the LTS cycle we do that change, the riskier it becomes.
There's also the fact that, like, I mean, the V8 upgrade was working and tested and perfect a quarter ago. And then it's when we tried to integrate it again later that we ran into all of this stuff. So
what kind of issues are coming up with it?
There were VS, like, I forget exactly what the deal was, but we ran into some problems with VS Code, with Visual Studio compiler and certain C++ 11 language features, and then we had to patch to fix those, and then those patches were not working properly. And I think it's, to be honest, a part of this also is just the LTS team is overworked and understaffed. And so trying to keep up with all of this stuff is just not really feasible with all the other things that are on our plates. So I think that outside of this, there's a larger issue that needs to be explored with getting more people involved in release and LTS. But outside of that, not having it integrated yet makes me nervous. But I'm also concerned, to Ali's point about punting this another quarter, that, we'll just be in the same position again, trying to integrate it again 4 releases from now.
Right. I mean, I guess the one option that you suggest is like delay the Semver miner, or say a month or something, so that we can have the proper RC.
That's an option.
I mean, that is more conservative than just going forward, but doesn't delay a month. Is that,
The other thing that you could do too, realistically, and this is a bigger thing with release, we only had one Semver miner that was being covered by this release. So it's I think it's maybe 150 commits or something like that, and the majority of them are docs. We could just delay this particular release. We've already delayed it by a week. We could delay the release and just not do the V8 LTS release that was planned. I'd want to go through and review the commits that are on there and make sure that there isn't anything major that was breaking that people were waiting on. We could also delay the release by another 2 weeks. I don't really know. Maybe we should punt to the release team to figure this out. But I wanted to just surface this to the TSC because I'm kind of unhappy with where we're at right now, and not sure what the best approach would be moving forward.
So I guess you're looking for input from anybody who's on the call of their preference among those options, or?
If we don't have very much, I'm fine with punting on it until there's more. I understand the the desire to want to get a regular cadence of releases out, but as an LTS release, if there's not a release because there's not a lot of changes, I generally think that's a good thing.
So, Matteo, to the point that you just raised about doing a minor and then another minor, give me 1 second here because I want to just look at what minors are on there. We try to only do 1 minor per quarter because we don't want to be doing too many minor releases on LTS. If we look at the changelog here, for which Semver minors we have right now. The changelog actually hasn't been made yet, so I don't have that to look at. But we're looking at 117 commits
in the 8.10 proposal right now, and the majority of those are built-in tools. And yeah, I guess like what may make sense is maybe Gibson and I should have a sync on this. We could do an audit of the material that's in there, ensure that if there's anything in there that's like explicitly needed because it's breaking people, that we're not going to delay too much more on that. But I almost feel like it would be okay punting the release if we don't have a lot of commits, if the stuff that we have is not, particularly time sensitive.
I don't know if like you probably have the branch checked out somewhere or anything. Could you run changelog maker for that pull request for the 8.10 proposal and just like post that in the DPR description, because like that's massively helpful for reviewing what's in a proposal?
I can do that right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, I have no general objection to delaying it by a few weeks if that gives us a proper RC.
And then the one thing that I do think is worth considering on this as well, and I know we don't have numbers, but I don't know how many people are even really using RSCs at all. And like the extended RC process, if anything, is just kind of giving us time to review the SitKim and CI and make sure everything's passing. But I want to make sure at the same time that we're not over-indexing on an RC if people aren't really using it. But that's kind of, a more meta question, maybe for the release team. I think that I've got what we need for the conversation live now, and we're about to hit the time. I think that I can take it from here and follow up with people to make a good decision. We should probably try to do that tomorrow because the release is scheduled for Tuesday.
Yeah, making sure we communicate ahead would be good. Okay, if that's the discussion you wanted to take place, that was the last thing on the agenda other than the strategic initiatives update. We only have 1 minute left. So I guess at this...
One thing really quick, sorry to interrupt. If anyone hasn't seen, we spun up a modules group to lead on making sure that we can have a good modules implementation. We have a central place for conversation. We have almost 40 people who have signed up already, and probably maybe 200 comments in the last 48 hours. It's really cool. We did like a thing where people just kind of raised their hands to join. So we have a lot of new collaborators and old collaborators, and it's really exciting, all the people who are coming in. I'd love to talk to anyone who has ideas about how to be really effective with such a large group, but just wanted to make sure it was on everyone's radar.
So I was just going to see if anybody, I think we'll call it, but if anybody had some specific updates on those strategic initiatives they wanted to give, like the one Miles just did, we probably could spare a couple minutes.
Not so much an update, but a request. I would really like to get HP2 out of experimental in time for 10.0.0. The code is fairly stable right now. There has been no significant changes over the past month. There are a few small details and stuff being tweaked here and there. In order to get it out of experimental, we need to make sure that it is solid, which means we need people kicking the tires on it. So I would ask, as you have time, take another look, make sure that it's working, and if you run into any issues, get those issues opened or pull requests opened as quickly as possible so we get those resolved. And as a reminder, the 10.0.0 release is scheduled for April 24th. I'm going to be starting the process, actually creating the branch on March 1st.
Okay, HTTP2, I'm just going to say, James, people to test so we can get out of experimental. I guess at this point, any updates people have?
Quick update from before. The 6.2 pull request is green now and ready to land. So I don't know if that affects anyone's thoughts on it. Just a small thing to let everyone know.
Okay. Now, is anybody watching the YouTube channel to see if there's any questions there? If anybody is watching, if you post your question in the issue for the meeting, we can address them. Okay, I don't see any questions there, so I think we'll say there's no questions for this week. And we'll call it a day. Okay, Francisca, if you want to take the stream down.